Hey everyone, and Happy New Year to you. I hope that you had a wonderful holiday season. I'm going to do a resolution video, which I don't think I did last year. I'm pretty sure I didn't. And I have often talked about using your planner and setting goals, but maybe last year I didn't even make resolutions. Maybe coming out of 2020, I was like, whatever, just go live your life. So anyway, my resolutions this year are about either fun or making myself happier. And the reason for that is because sometimes I have a tendency in years past to make resolutions just for the sake of being like, I did this thing and now I'm checking the box off without any real end goal of how it would improve my life. So I have two categories of resolutions that I want to share with you. One category is really just about thinking about certain things and focusing on them. And the other category are actual measurable, check-boxable types of goals. So I can't wait to tell you my New Year's resolutions. All right, so the first set of New Year's resolutions, there are 10 total. The first category, there are 3. So this category is not something that I feel like I could track, or if I really wanted to track it, I could, but I'd have to do even more specific goals, and I'm really not interested in that. I'm really interested in focusing in on these 3 things and just trying to be mindful of them so that I can sort of improve my mental health. All right, so my first resolution is to say what I need to say. And I've started working on this resolution a little bit early because recently I realized that this is something that I don't do. I often just default to like, oh my gosh, don't worry about it. It's no problem. It's fine. And a lot of times I do feel that way, like whatever, something happened. It's a minor inconvenience. It's not a problem. It is fine. I don't care. But I default to this in every situation, in every circumstance of my life. And sometimes things aren't fine. So I feel like say what you need to say is this perfect middle ground of saying nothing or saying what you want to say. And sometimes what you want to say, you can't say in various scenarios of your life, your job, your school, your friendships, your relationships, at work, wherever you are. So what I want to do is I want to focus on, in a situation, if something happens, I speak up for myself instead of just letting everything be fine, So there are certain situations in life where, of course, like I'm not going to cause a big stink because it's really not that big of a deal. So for example, a few weeks ago, I got Chipotle and my order was wrong. So I called and I was like, my order's wrong. And they were like, okay, we'll refund you. I'm not going to yell at anybody. I'm not going to get upset about that. But I was proud of myself for sticking up and saying like, yeah, I do want a refund because my order was wrong and I paid for this, as opposed to being like, I guess I'll just eat the wrong burrito bowl, Now that's a small example, but I do think that there are some larger examples. Maybe there are times where we feel like there is something that we want to ask for at work. There's something that we need to say to a friend that, maybe didn't do something right by us, or whatever the case is. And sometimes we just ignore it because we think that saying something would be more complicated and more involved. And you know what? Honestly, sometimes it is. Often it is, but I don't want to be a person that never speaks up for myself. So I am making this a goal of mine. It's something that I'm working on and it's going well so far. This doesn't mean that I'm on this path of like trying to constantly speak up in every circumstance and like, I need to speak my mind. I need to speak up now. But just if there is a circumstance where I find myself slipping into that, hey, don't worry about it. It's okay, or whatever. And it's really not, then I want to say something. So that is my first resolution. Again, not something that I can really track, but something that I'm excited to focus on going into the new year. Resolution number 2 is to worry less. And I know that that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I have this bad habit of worrying about every single scenario. I think there's like a Dr. Strange meme about this, but anyway, I'll have to find it. It's something that I'm not proud of, but I've heard this quote, essentially something like, if you're worrying about everything and something does go wrong down the line, you're suffering twice. And I think that it's kind of a default or maybe a coping mechanism for trying to prepare yourself for problems that may or may not happen. And maybe it's because you have seen something happen in the past where things didn't go as planned. Maybe something happened with the pandemic and your job, or maybe a relationship. And so when something in your life, maybe something starts to get good, you start worrying about all the different scenarios that could go wrong. And that's not something that I want to keep doing. So that is one part of it. When I start to feel myself focusing on something that could go wrong, and then, well, what other 4 things could go wrong from that, I start to spiral, and I want to try my best to not do that, to focus on maybe there's a situation that could be challenging, but I will come back to it later if it really needs to be addressed. But in the moment, I'm not going to do that. That also means no doom scrolling. I have a bad habit of that, a tendency to like, oh, I have a headache. Well, what do you think that means? Let me Google it. And that never ends well. If you've done it, whether MD will tell you all sorts of horrible things. And again, it's like a spiral for me. So one of my goals is to worry less. And I'm not saying that that is an easy thing. Again, like resolution number one, that's something that I've already tried to focus on, and it's hard. I'll catch myself like in the shower and I'm thinking and I drift off and I'm like, come back, Rebecca. Like, you don't have to worry about every little thing. So that is my second resolution, which leads me into my third resolution. I just wrote it on my little napkin here: social media. I wish that I had some grandiose, again, easy, trackable thing, but I don't really have that. I'm just trying to figure out what could be better about my usage of social media that would help me worry less and just help me in general. Now, one thing with social media that I feel grateful that I don't really struggle with is the whole comparison thing. I rarely compare my life to somebody else's because everybody's social media is their highlight reel. We've heard this 1,000 times, and I find it to be true, especially because, like, let's say you have a really close friend or somebody you know from work or whoever, a family member, and they've confided in you something that's really tough that's going on in their life, and then you get on social media and you see them post these wonderful, happy pictures. It kind of makes you realize, like, well, they just told me all of this stuff, and I clearly know that they have other things going on. And you do it too. I know I do it. I'm not gonna post maybe all the terrible things, not that they're really terrible things, but challenging things in my life. I'll post the happy things. And so knowing people close to you and yourself and what you share, you know that it's not always real what you're seeing in front of you. That being said, even though I feel like I'm very lucky that I don't really compare myself that often, really at all, to people on the internet, I will say that I feel like I sometimes am almost like living in this, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like kind of foggy in my brain space. I'm not doing a good job explaining this, but if you've experienced this or you can explain it better than me, leave a comment below. But almost like you feel like you've scrolled on Facebook and social media and TikTok and whatever else, and you come out of it an hour later and you're like, whoa, like where was I even? It's almost like a brain fog you're in. So I've had an issue with that. Time management, I'm on there like hours a day, and it's like my focus, I can't focus on tasks anymore the way I used to. And I think I saw a meme about that as well. Like you're in middle school and you like used to read like 4 chapter books a week, and I'm like, I used to read so much, and now I just scroll mindlessly. So anyway, I don't know a specific goal that I'm planning on setting. I did deactivate my Facebook, which has been really good. I just have Instagram now. If you have any specific tips of things that you've done with social media that have helped you a lot kind of clear up that brain fog, leave a comment below, because that's something that I'm working on. I just want to be more present, and then when I am present, I don't want to be kind of like in outer space. So let me know what you think about that. Moving along, these are my bucket list resolution items. So you'll notice on this list that there's nothing about finances, and the reason for that is because my husband and I are buying a house this year. We sort of have things set up for ourselves where things are automatic. We kind of have rules of like how much goes into savings, how much goes into different sinking funds. So it's not that saving and contributing to retirement and all of that isn't on this bucket list. It's just something that's sort of already in the works. So there's that. And then maybe there are a couple other bucket list things that I didn't put on here that I'll add later. But the first is to donate blood. It's something that I did a while ago. Actually, I've done it a couple of times, probably most recently like 7 or 8 years ago. So it's been a while. I think it's a great thing that you can do to help others, especially, you know, in a time where there's so much going on at hospitals and for healthcare professionals nowadays and for patients who need it. So I actually got thinking about it after the moleskin video when everyone was telling me their blood type. So that's something that's on my list, donate blood. Next, and before I tell you the next one, these ones are things that are just like kind of, again, bucket listy, just sort of like fun things that I want to focus on for me. So again, I mentioned that there's nothing with financial stuff here or like my family or my relationships. These are only focused on myself. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to take a voice lesson this year. I took voice lessons just for fun like 15 years ago when I was in college, and it was awesome. And I have like no aspirations of like singing professionally because that's like not my path nor my talent level, but it's something that's fun for me. And I think that sometimes with hobbies, we feel like we have to be good at something to do it, and that's not true. We don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. So I want to do that, which leads me to my next one, creative outlet of learn a TikTok dance, or I guess TikTok videos that make their way to Instagram, because I'm too old for TikTok, which is fine. And I'm like, am I too old to be like dancing like this? And I'm like, you know what? Again, you don't have to be good at something to have fun. Plus, I think an activity like this would be really good for my brain. Like I said, back to the social media thing, I feel like my brain is kind of turning into mush. So I think learning a dance would be really fun. Speaking of things I did forever ago, I used to do 5Ks a lot, and it was just like a nice way to get outside, and I want to do that again this year. So 5K is the next item on the list. The next item on the list, because I want to work out a tiny bit more. I don't really have any specific workout goals or exercise goals, but I want to be able to do a split. I used to be a little bit more flexible, never to the point where I could comfortably do a split, but kind of. So I want to add that to my list to see if I stretch a little bit more, if I can get there. Again, back to social media. I feel like I used to read and I loved it so much, and it was just such a good escape and so relaxing, and I don't do that anymore. One of my issues is that I have a hard time choosing books. So when I start a book, I usually finish it in a couple days, but to actually start a book and get into it and be like, okay, I'm really invested in these characters, which I prefer fiction just to sort of like relax and unwind, but it's something that I really want to do and I want to make a point to do it. So my goal is to read 12 books this year, which absolutely should not be hard. A book a month, I can definitely do that. So if you have any good book recommendations, leave them in the comments below. And lastly, there is a food Instagram that I follow. She's a professional chef, author, blogger, does all of the things. Many people, she has over 3 million followers, so I'm not like sharing anything new here, but several people I know follow her, and it's Half Baked Harvest. And I sort of started scrolling like 2 weeks ago, and all of the food looks amazing. So my resolution is to make one new recipe each month. Now, I'm gonna alternate between baking and cooking, because if I just said one new recipe each month, I would definitely just pick like cookies and then cake and then back to cookies and then, some type of like cinnamon rolls. So I want to make some new recipes. I did tell my sister, because we eat dinner together every night, that I was doing this, and I was telling her about this meatball zucchini recipe that I want to try, and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, it sounds good, but it sounds like a lot of work. And I was like, look, maybe it's going to be a little bit more work than what we're making for dinner right now, but at the same time, like, how many different ways can we keep putting cream cheese and chicken in a crock pot? You know what I mean? So I am not a person that loves cooking or baking really, but I am tired of eating all of the meals that I've eaten for the last year. We have kind of like a simple and easy rotation, which is really nice because we meal plan and just me and my whole family eat dinner together. So I'm really grateful for that. And I love the simplicity of that, but it's nice to add something new. So I'll have to let you know which recipes I decide to try. All right, one last thing that I want to do is that every day I wake up and I play this puzzle game from the New York Times site. It's the Spelling Bee, and I always try to get the Pangram, and I don't always get it every day, but my goal is to get it 100 days in 2022. So I get up, I try, and if I get it right away, that's great. And if not, I'll come back to it. So that's just like a little mind thing that I like to do for myself, and it's fun. So that is on my resolution list as well. Anyway, those are my New Year's resolutions. There are some other things I'll be working on this year in terms of personal development, maybe travel, finally moving. So those are some big things, but in terms of just small little things that I wanted to put on my list, things that I wanted to focus on for my own mental health and well-being, as well as some other fun things, that's my list for resolutions. So I'm hoping to come back and make another video in the summer or maybe at the end of the year to let you know how my New Year's resolutions went. But in the meantime, you'll have to share if you have any. I'd love to hear them in the comments below, something that you're working on or something that you're hoping happens in the new year, just any type of thing that you're focusing on for 2022. So anyway, leave your comments below. I'll be sure to put these resolutions in my planner. And if you have anything to share, I can't wait to hear. Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.